out of all the kids in the White Room, Shiro was the only one to not only survive Ayanokoji, but the demonic fourth generation. You know, the generation that was so hard that the scientists were like, yeah, we can't put normal humans through this. And Ayanokoji's dad was like, yes, we can. We shall sacrifice them. Hell, put my kid in there. I don't care. But that's a story for another day. Shiro, aside from Ayanokoji, was the best martial artist, and he was the only other person, again, aside from Ayanokoji, who wasn't kicked out of the White Room. And the way he left is one of my favorite scenes in the entire Volume 0 that covers the White Room. And you're not gonna guess. Like, just like the Yuki video, you are not gonna guess how it happens. So we're gonna go through all those passages. We're gonna read all of Ayanokoji and Shiro's interactions. And we're gonna get to the bottom of who Shiro is and who was the second strongest, undisputed person in the White Room's fourth generation. This isn't opinion. This is just straight up fact. So let's dive into the first passage. Let's get this party started. All right. And again, I fixed it today. Now my thing isn't taking up the text because apparently people are reading it. I didn't know that. Our group was called the fourth generation, had a total of 74 students in the early years. However, as mentioned above, children who were deemed to be unable to do so at the age of 3 had already dropped out of the White Room. So basically, the White Room was culling people as early as they could. If you did not have the aptitude to be in the fourth generation, you are gone. You need to be able to keep up, or you were gone as early as 3 years old. Therefore, all 61 of us then shared almost all our time together, excluding bedtime. The written test was 30 minutes long. By the way, this chapter is going to go over the thing that makes Ayanokoji straight up broken within the White Room. So be a little patient. I'm going to tell you that this is going to pay off big time when we get to the big reveal, okay? The written test was 30 minutes long, but there was enough time to complete it in about half to 2/3 of the time limit if we solved the questions without hesitation. This was true for all the previous written exams in the White Room. Solve the equation and move on to the next. Determine the answer and write it down. At the same time, review the previous questions to see if you've made mistakes. There's a translation note over here. They're doing Latin alphabet, I think. These notes are pretty useful because I'm not a Japanese reader, so I have no idea what's going on. After signaling that I was done, I turned the paper over. Getting a perfect score on the written exam was the minimum. The minimum was getting perfect. There ain't no get 60s or 70s or 50s and skate on through. Nah. Perfect is the minimum. That's the bare minimum requirement. At the same time, you were required to be a neat... It's not just I would fail the White Room so fast, by the way. My handwriting is atrocious. I don't even think you could call it handwriting. This is what happens when you give kids iPads and keyboards. I haven't even had to write anything down in years. This was the 7th written exam since I turned 4 years old, and I've won first place 4 times in a row. The first time I took the written exam, I was ranked 24th. The second time, 15th, and the third time, 7th. I didn't have a good start. It took me a while to figure out how the written exams work. Its logic and its efficiency. This is Ayanokoji's guiding factor within the White Room. This is what made him straight up broken, is the fact that when he can find out the efficiency and logic of anything, he just unwinds it like nobody else, and you just can't beat him after. Once I solved that, I hadn't been overtaken. And I myself have been improving my certainty ever more. So it's not that he just gains this level of adaptability, he figures out the logic, and he just stays there. No, he just grows exponentially faster than everybody else. That's why even if you were to be able to catch up to where he beat you last time, by the time you get there, he's already to the next level and you are way further behind. You can see the gap between me and the second place finisher was widening with each written exam. And now the time gap was about 5 minutes. And then what did he say the first time? It was 50. He started off at 24th, then he was 15th, and then 7th. And then just the time gap kept expanding over and over and over again. Regardless if I got a perfect score or first place, I would never be praised by anyone. Again, emotions, no place in the White Room. You do well, that's the bare minimum. You're winning, that is the bare minimum. You expect praise, go somewhere else. When everyone finished, we moved on to the next part of the curriculum, Now we'll start. Here's where we get to the fun part. We get in the martial arts. And this is where Shiro and Ayanokoji cross paths. First, now we'll start judo. Everyone please change and follow the instructor to the other room. Well, before we get into the Ayanokoji and Shiro thing, you're gonna see what martial arts looks like within the white room. And if you thought the written tests were bad, they are nothing. The written tests are nothing compared to how martial arts is handled. It is demonic. And I don't use that word lightly here. This is the most demonic part of the entire curriculum, in my opinion. Martial arts. This was another curriculum added as we turn 4 years old, bro. 4 years old, by the way. As was the written test. I've been taught judo for 4 months. While being trained in the basics, we progressed to the stage where we had to fight in actual combat. My vision shook and I felt a strong pain in my back. In the confrontation with the instructor, which is a grown adult, by the way, it's not like another child instructor, it's a grown adult. The children were always made to taste this bitterness. I was no exception. Get up. The relentless slamming into the floor, making it impossible to breathe, didn't allow you a break. If I didn't get up immediately, I would be reprimanded again. So it's like, it's not only that an adult is basically beating you up when you're 4 years old, but you get like dogged on because an adult is beating you up. Like, what kind of world is this? Next arms that were many times thicker than mine flew at me. I was slammed to the floor again, and I tried desperately to catch myself, but I couldn't absorb the damage. Dude, just a height advantage in a fight gives you a lot of advantages. So imagine you're like 4 going, like, it's just insurmountable. It'll be like, if you watch Attack on Titan, it's like a human trying to fight a Titan with like arm-to-arm combat. Like, it's just not happening, bro. While I was being knocked down to the ground, similar occurrences were happening all over the place. All the kids were crying and sobbing while being thrashed around. I can't stand up. As if begging for forgiveness, Mikuru clung weakly to the instructor's leg. Still, get up. The girl was forced to stand up as the instructor forcibly shook off her hands, but her body seemed to be immobilized. The fact that it's a girl wasn't being taken into consideration. I told you to stand up. The girl was kicked, spun around and around the floor, and sprayed vomit all over the place. Of course, the adults weren't kicking seriously. Even so, it was obvious to everyone that the force of the kick was unbelievably strong. I don't give a damn. Even if you're a kid, you already know that. The average mind would have a strong... You're right, bro. The average mind would have a strong resistance to hurting a child this much. Yes, they would. These aren't the average. Yo, Ayanokoji's low-key roasting this guy, though. But the instructors who've been called to the white room they're crazy, bro. They're straight up crazy. They were the kind of people who had no qualms about sending women and children to the brink of death. I don't know, for some reason, this reminds me of that like line from Konosuba about Kazuma and gender equality. But this is the dark version. This is if Konosuba, but you just strip away all the comedy and you're just left with the dark stuff. Oh my god. What did they say next? They were kind of qualms about sending women and children to the brink of death. No one will cry if you disappear. Stand up and face them on your own. Mikuru, convulsing and unfocused, put her hands on the floor and tried to get up. Yes, that's it. Show some spirit. But the previous kick Mikuru took was critical, and she collapsed and lost consciousness. Damn, you gutless bastard. Get her out of here. Get out of my way. The instructor, who had been making irritating footsteps, shouted angrily as he forcibly removed Mikuru from the room. Do you believe such a scene is tragic? If so, you should change how you think. This is only the beginning. Like, that's basically it. Again, remember how in the last video we went over how the environment shaped like the necessity of the children and how they thought? This is one of them. If you're subjected to so much cruelty and it just is happening day on day and there's nobody reprimanding anything, you just think of it as normal. Like, you are just conditioned to think of this as normal. And again, Ayanokoji, like he said, like I covered in one of the things in the last video, the only way to make it stop is to physically make it stop, is to be good, is to be able to match the instructors. Crying dropping on the floor, all that stuff, nothing. None of this stuff is going to make it stop. The only thing that's going to make it stop is to actually get good. So the environment, again, necessitates the growth of the children, or like the cruelty, I guess, in this sense, necessitates that growth, whichever way you want to see it, because this is heinous. Like, this is terrible. Make no mistake, this is awful, but it is how the White Room functioned. This is only the excessive reactions like Mikuru's were decreasing day by day, and even the expression of pain was fading away. Even human instincts were eliminated by the brain as superfluous functions. Again, if you're in an environment where you're just getting thrashed around by adults all the time, all this like other flowery stuff, it has like no place here. Like, all you gotta do is black and white thinking. It's like, how do I stop this pain? How do I stop this from happening over and over and over again? It was natural to be thrown. It was natural to have difficulty breathing. It was natural to hurt yourself to the point of sobbing. And even thinking about it was a waste. Again, you're not like, even spending time thinking about how much pain you're in is a waste of time, because that's only gonna lead towards more pain. Like, you gotta develop the mentality that this doesn't hurt you, even if it does. Because even if it does hurt you, it doesn't matter thinking about it, because it's not gonna help you. The only thing that you need to focus in the White Room is the things that help you. That's it. That's the only, and the environment, again, necessitates for that. Of course, the most ideal situation was to defeat your opponent, but the opponent was far superior in strength, size, and skill. Needless to say, it wasn't easy to bridge the gap between adults and children. After being forced to fight intensely and breathlessly, everyone rose to their feet, battered and bruised. After an intense education from our instructors, we were obliged to take part in hand-to-hand combat with 3 others at the end of the day. The children never looked tired. I've learned that any prey that seems weak was doomed to be hunted down by the strong. Again, in the White Room, all the children believe in one thing: in self-preservation, to be the last one standing. So they will gladly take advantage of someone who's weak to make sure that they don't have to be the person that's weak. That's the type of environment that they were brought up in. My record, and this was in fighting by the way, was 144 fights, 127 wins, 17 losses, and was currently on a 64 fight winning streak. The fights were rotated between male and female opponents, but Shiro stood in front of me, silently waiting for the signal to begin. Shiro had an overwhelmingly good record of 135 wins and 9 losses. That's crazy, by the way. That's better than Ayanokoji's. 127 to 17, 135 to 9. This guy was naturally gifted in martial arts. I've played against Shiro twice, winning once and losing once. I lost my first Randori match, but I had not lost since the first rotation. However, among the other students, Shiro had the best judo skills. Because he was a formidable opponent, he was able to sharpen his sensitivity even more. Shiro had always been aggressive and took the initiative in his fighting against others, but today in his 3rd match, he seemed to be taking a wait-and-see attitude, aiming to create counterattacks. Randori, by the way, the word we saw earlier, is a 1 versus 3 judo match. Judo, as again, I'm not like a martial. I haven't done martial arts before, but as I understand, judo is mostly about grappling and stuff. That's how I look at it. I had a friend that did Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but like, oh no, this isn't judo though. BJJ is different. But judo, I think, again, isn't it mostly about grapples? I actually don't even know, but I would assume it's some sort of martial arts. This was something I welcomed, as I wanted to gain experience in attacking a strong opponent. Begin. As the instructor's announcement, we fought each other to the bitter end with our defeat on our backs. Win or lose, we moved on to the next lesson as if nothing happened. Karate is a martial arts that started somewhat later, so it wasn't only judo, they had karate as well coming in. So martial arts were being added one by one. Again, remember when Ayanokoji took like Manabu, Horikata's brother, on in like the first episode? That guy was like a black belt in, or one of the top rated in Japan in one of the martial arts, and Ayanokoji was able to match him. So this is the training that allowed him to do that, by the way. Here, the students were subjected to more direct blows from the instructors than in judo. The variety of martial arts would probably increase again as we reached 5 or 6 years old. That was a common inference amongst all the students. So again, with the fighting, with the exams and everything, people were being called down. And the next passage, even though we read through it in the last one, I'm going to read through it again here because it's important to see how the students were culled down one by one. More fourth generation students disappeared, and the only one left. Wait, no, not this one. Sorry. It's the one before this one. Every few months or years, there came a time of great change. That's when some of the children began to have trouble keeping up with the curriculum. The level of study increased by 2 or 3 difficulty levels, and little by little, they began to fall behind. It was clear that even after the same amount of time spent learning, there were differences among the individuals. When they were first taught addition, when they were first taught multiplication, they started out equally. But then others realized that they were superior to each other. Along the way, they can rewind and move on to the next step, but often, the child who is noticeably behind stumbles at the next step. I'm sure that the adults didn't welcome the children dropping out. However, they couldn't keep children who weren't keeping up with the program in the same place indefinitely. Leaving a child who wasn't keeping up created dissonance. And if you try to accommodate the child who wasn't keeping up, the others' rhythms who were ahead would be lost. The next learning opportunity would be lost. This is why it was necessary to gradually decrease the number of children. And this got more intense the more and more they went. Even when they were left with 20, even when they were left with 10, students still dropped out. And as I foreshadowed with my mistake before, it went to a point where more of the fourth generation students disappeared, and the only 2 left in the entire white room were Ayanokoji and Shiro. These were the only 2 left going head to head against each other. It had been several months since the 2 of us were the last ones. Several months. So this man, Shiro, was just keeping up with Ayanokoji. He was not slacking off. We never spoke to each other once during that time, and every day there was silence. But I didn't mind. I even thought it was better. With Yuki's chatter gone, I was able to focus more on my learning. Again, Yuki's expulsion from the white room. We will cover this later. I need to make a whole separate big video on it because there are several scenes between Ayanokoji and Yuki that didn't get into in the last video because it wasn't in the scope. But believe you me, I will cover those later. But that day was the first judo lesson in a few days. Due to the heightened curriculum, certain events were only offered once in a few days. Still, both Shiro and I were improving our skills. Even though the competition were different, our training allowed us to become familiar with our skills, and we can apply them to many martial arts. These guys were just fighting every single day, every type of martial arts. So think of how good Shiro is. Not only did he keep up with Ayanokoji and judo, but he kept up with every single martial arts. You two are going to continue with your usual sparring sessions. I'll be out of the room for a bit. And even if he can't beat Ayanokoji, the instructors are looking at this, right? They are grading him in comparison to Ayanokoji, and they're keeping him in the white room. If he wasn't good enough to be in the white room, they would expel him. I don't even think, even if there are 2 people left, I don't think the white room has any problem with culling the herd by 50% by getting rid of the other person. I don't think the white room would ever give him that level of charity. So Shiro wasn't just there because he was the only other body. He was there because he was good enough to still be there. Straight up, he was still just good enough to be there. The instructor who was acting as a referee left the room in a hurry as if he'd been summoned. We were left behind and started our randori as instructed. We clutched each other's, I can't pronounce, judogi. I'm not Japanese, guys. Please have mercy. I will say judogi, but I'm probably wrong. Hirona had done the same thing dozens and hundreds of times. Can I have a word? The past month's silence was broken when Shiro whispered into my ear. I thought it was a mental attack, but he stopped moving completely. It's been many, many years since I've last beaten you in judo, hasn't it? That's right. I've been winning since the second round since the second time Ayanokoji fought Shiro. First time he lost, second time just now. This is the level of adaptability this man has. He just, after he figures you out, he will just not lose. He will just not lose. Boxing, karate, jeet kune-do, these are hard words, man. It's the same for everyone. I'll win the first 1 or 2 fights, but once you turn the tables on me, I can't do anything about it. You're really great. So again, Shiro is just naturally gifted in martial arts. He is just, whenever he picks something up, he is just good. But Ayanokoji is just better at learning and getting better. So over time, he just beats him and there's no catching back up. What's that saying people say? hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. But Shiro is working hard. But the rate at which Ayanokoji works and the efficiency at which he works and probably the intelligence at which he works, he's just good. And again, you have to take this account. Shiro isn't stupid, right? Like, they were doing martial arts, but I cannot imagine the White Room stopped from doing them, from them doing like written tests as well. So Shiro was not only doing the martial arts, he was not only doing the logical puzzles, he was also doing the written tests. So he was excelling in every single criteria. By all accounts, this man was the second best in the fourth generation, by far, like no competition. Okay, Jeet boxing for everything, it's the same. I'll win the first 1 or 2 rounds, but once you turn the tables on me, I can't do anything about it. You're really great. Why would he say that in the middle of a brawl like this? I have one thing to say to you. What? I listened to the mumbling, which continued at such a close distance that the adults couldn't pick it up. I've decided to leave this facility. Only the outcasts get out of here. So I'm going to drop out and get out of here. If you look at the dropout tendencies and the adults who have to deal with them, you can imagine what kind of paths they take. At least I won't be killed. That is a very optimistic take. Imagine being in the White Room. It's like, okay, I gotta drop out, but at least I won't be killed. But this is really significant, by the way. And you're gonna see in a second why. What are you going to do out there? Is there a point to that? Yes, I want freedom. Freedom. I want to be free. I want to have friends. Isn't it normal to feel that way? Look around you. It's just me and you. We're going to be like this for over 10 years. I don't understand what Shiro meant. Why would he want that? This is such an important conversation. Because you can see why Ayanokoji is the White Room's masterpiece. Not only did he get the results, but the indoctrination was so one-to-one in his mind that he is the epitome of what a White Room person should look like. This line you see above, what are you going to do out there? Is there a point? Yes, I want freedom. Freedom. I want to be free. I want to have friends. This is not how a White Room student thinks. This is how a normal person thinks. This is a normal human being. This is somebody who is not weird. I think the interesting part is for Ayanokoji being indoctrinated within the White Room, he's thinking the way he's thinking is normal. But we're being shown a contrast in the story right here that the way he's thinking is weird. This is the White Room's indoctrination talking. The way Shiro thinks is normal. And here's the deal. Out of all the people in the White Room, Shiro is the second best, and he's still breaking free from the White Room's indoctrination, which goes to show you how strong the indoctrination was for Ayanokoji, how closely the White Room seeped into his mind. Unless you read this monologue or read these lines, it's not really that obvious, but this, I think, is the most obvious take in which Ayanokoji differs from every other person in the White Room. It's not just his capabilities, but how deeply the White Room indoctrination seeped within his mind. I think that's really important to take into account. I don't understand what Shiro meant. Why would he want that? Don't you care about the outside world? Or are you able to withstand this pain in the first place? I have never had any such interests or doubts. Again, never even thought about the outside world. That's crazy. One-sided knowledge and the small space. Are you satisfied with that? This is a banger line. This is a banger line, and another character in the second year also says this. I am not gonna say who. He just has blonde hair is all I'm gonna say. I want to spoil so badly. But I guess it's kind of a spoiler with me indicating the hair color. At least I'm not complaining. I'm definitely growing every day in the White Room. Didn't he want to know how far he could grow and what his limits are? And what was that other line that Ayanokoji said to Tsukishiro at the end of the first year? Oh, it's about the frog, right? A frog in a well knows nothing. I'm going to paraphrase and it's going to be completely wrong and I don't have it in front of me. I didn't get it ready, but you guys can correct me in the comments when I'm wrong and when I am wrong. I was going to say if I'm wrong, but I'm saying when I'm wrong because I know I'm going to be wrong. It's like a frog doesn't know anything about the outside world. A frog in a well only knows about the well. But Ayanokoji was like, he may not know about anything about the outside world or outside the well as a frog, but he knows about the depth of the sky. That is to say that even though he doesn't know a lot of things outside the White Room, he knows everything the White Room has to offer him. He's gone further in the White Room that anyone else has, and I think that line has to do with him going physically and mentally, as in terms of the philosophy of the White Room. He is more into the White Room's philosophy, as you can see with this conversation, than any other person who has participated in it. Like, by far, end of conversation. Like, there's nothing more to say. He is more indoctrinated within the White Room's like mindset than anyone else ever. But interesting enough, this conversation about freedom, where have you seen this before? Well, but I'm gonna ruin it. You've seen it in Volume 1. You've seen it in the first season of Classroom Delete. Remember when Ayanokoji goes to his room, puts his bag down for the first time, and he gives us a monologue about freedom? Is this not eerily similar to the monologue Shiro is giving Ayanokoji right now? But the interesting part is, Ayanokoji is refuting it, while in the first volume, Ayanokoji is accepting it. What is the difference between those two things? What happened in between now and what happened and the events that have transpired, like all the way to Volume 1, that made Ayanokoji not only accept Shiro's point of view, but crave it? What was the difference? The author said, like, we can do a lot of like speculating, but the author did say that maybe in the third year or somewhere in there, we may be getting a volume that is like in between Volume 0 and Volume 1. It's his time with the butler Matsuo, his time outside the White Room, maybe a visit to New York, which is hinted in the first volume. I don't know. Ayanokoji said he's been to New York. Maybe the author was just, writing like weird stuff, but like Ayanokoji did say he went to New York, so maybe that's somewhere in there. Who knows? But there is a volume that's slated in between that tells us, and I'm pretty sure it'll answer the question of why Ayanokoji basically inherited this idea of freedom from Shiro. When he was like, rejecting it here, he was the biggest fan back in Volume 1 in the first season of the show. Okay. One-sided knowledge in the small space, are you satisfied with that? At least I'm not complaining. I'm definitely growing every day in the White Room. Didn't he want to know how far he could grow and what his limits were? You can't get this kind of education in the outside world. This means that you will lose efficiency and self-improvement. You're weird. I want to see the real world, not the virtual one. Objectively speaking, I had seen many children who were sick and tired of their constrained lives. But the idea of dropping out because I couldn't take it anymore never came. Again, the children were indoctrinated from day one to think in a way that being in the White Room means they're alive, being outside the White Room means death. So the natural inclination within humans to seek freedom, to have these desires to make friends, to talk to people is so strong, even within the strongest in the White Room, say for example Shiro, that they're able to break the indoctrination within the White Room, but Ayanokoji can't. That's how, again, every single line that you're taking in this conversation is a testament to how strong Ayanokoji's indoctrination is, how strong the White Room lives within him. And this is like so important for like the other volumes as we go through the stories from year 1 to year 2 to year 3, because all of this indoctrination is what creates like some of these contradictions within Ayanokoji and some of his actions. Objectively speaking, I was convinced when Yuki dropped out. I even envied her. I see. And this is such a good, oh my god, this is so good. Because when Yuki drops out, often in stories, we see this world through Ayanokoji's point of view, right? We're seeing every single event, every single thing happening from Ayanokoji's point of view. So Yuki dropping out acts as a catalyst. It shows us how one major event within this White Room differently affects two different characters. For Shiro, it hardened his resolve to get out of the White Room. It reawakened the little budding parts of him that were like, this place is closed off. This is unnatural. I want to see the outside world. Like, I want that. And Yuki dropping out in the same exact event solidified for Ayanokoji that this is the best place for me to train, to improve, and to become better. That I can get efficiency here that I can't get anywhere else. Yuki's dropping out. Brilliant piece of narrative, brilliant piece of writing. It basically acts as a catalyst and shows us the difference between Ayanokoji and Shiro, shows us the difference between someone who is indoctrinated at the highest level within the White Room versus someone who isn't, even though that other person is not bad. Like, he's not weak, he's not dropping out the White Room. He can take it, but he's dropping out because he wants more For Ayanokoji, the White Room is everything. This level of indoctrination and the difference between the two, such a beautiful piece of writing. Volume 0 is so cracked, by the way. It's so good. I see if that was the answer Shiro gave, then I had nothing to say. Again, Ayanokoji can't even understand why he's saying this. So for him, it's just something that he can't understand. It's similar to, you know how we talked about the smile in the previous video? It's similar to that. It's something he's never been taught. It's something he can't understand. So it's something he just has to accept as it is what it is. I thought you were just like me. I thought you'd want to be out in the world someday. This is the illustration of the two fighting it out. I'm sorry, but I've never thought of that. I see. I was going to ask you to leave with me. I was sure. Again, this is one thing that the White Room didn't teach you: compassion. Shiro, by asking Ayanokoji to come with him, is showing him compassion because he knows the pain that's in the White Room. He knows firsthand how hard it is to stick in here. And he's seeing this other guy in pain. He's like, yo, come with me. This is compassion. This is not something you're taught in the White Room, by the way, but this is what Shiro's exhibiting. So you can see how even in the harshest environment, human nature still breaks out. So again, another testament to how strong the indoctrination is for Ayanokoji. I was sure the adults were watching over him. I'm sure the adults watching over him didn't know this as well as I did. They did not know that Shiro had such an enormous amount of feelings about this place. Again, he was able to hide this entire thing. There was this established notion between the administrators that the children couldn't know what we didn't tell them. But the reality was that there were other people, like the ones in front of me, who desired to leave the White Room as soon as possible. I didn't know if this discovery meant anything, as long as I was the only, as long as I'm the only ones. Now, Volume 3 starts to make a lot of sense, by the way, guys. Volume 3, that monologue seems to make a lot of sense, especially when you know Ayanokoji was transported that way of thinking when he was operating in the island exam. Now we see how strong the indoctrination is and how strong his reflexes are when he goes into that mode. I didn't discover I'm gonna go ahead and see you again sometime, Kiyotaka. I didn't reply to his words. I only felt this extraordinary determination. I also sensed a determination that I have never felt before. A determination to defeat me in this battle. Shiro, last fight, he's gonna go all out, because why not? The opponent in front of me wasn't an easy opponent compared to a half-baked adult, and yet, Shiro's attack was repelled, and I got a clean blow. I couldn't lose to an opponent who had learned from the same mistakes I had made. Ooh, this is cold. If he exerted a power of 120, I exerted 130. If he exerted 140, I exerted 150. I don't care about the comfort of the White Room or the freedom of the outside. Comfort of the White Room? What comfort is in here, bro? What delusional land are you in? The important thing was that there was still much to learn here. As long as I could improve myself, I shouldn't avoid it. In other words, my intellectual curiosity was telling me to stay in the White Room. That's it. Even though there was no judge nearby, we were always being watched from another room on the second floor, behind the glass. Shiro slammed the ball down on the tatami mat, and we were informed that the game had been decided. I lost again, after all. I should have remembered from when I won. He rested his arm on his forehead, breathless, and spoke of his faded memories. It was 5 years of losing all the time. I guess I realized I couldn't win if I stayed here. Are you really going to drop out? Yeah, I'll leave the White Room when the time is right. He wasn't going to change his mind. I didn't understand. To leave the White Room was to die, no matter what form it took. Again, this is what all the children were brought up with, but human nature prevails. Human nature cannot be beat. Even within this mindset, Shiro was like, I gotta leave. I gotta get out of here. No, limited knowledge in a closed environment, not for me. I couldn't think like that. But Shiro must have had his own thoughts. If he wanted to delete himself, I couldn't stop him. Goodbye, Shiro. Goodbye, Kiyotaka. This was the last conversation between Shiro and me. How good is this, by the way? Oh my goodness, bro. The writing for Volume 0 is so good. Again, one of my favorite volumes of all time. One of my favorite volumes. And there are so many of these, and I think it's such a travesty that most of the videos I see about the White Room are about how strong Ayanokoji is. What is his training routine? Yada. And there is such good character writing. There's such good moments. There's such impactful stuff about Ayanokoji's character that like paint him as not just like one-dimensional like automaton, but like someone who has thoughts, feelings, emotions. Like he displays them. He has understanding. He has like interactions that paint certain lights. They're like ways. They're like different ways the author is like painting light on Ayanokoji's characters, creating differences, showing us all of this. It's so beautiful. And all of this, I think, it gets pushed to the wayside for like other, like, in my opinion, like kind of whatever stuff. So I just wanted to bring this to you guys. But again, I don't want this to just be like me reading the novels. I want this to be a discussion. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Let me know if I'm wrong. Let me know if I'm right. I want to hear from you. I want to see what's up. I want to have some discussions about Shiro because, in my opinion, this is one of my favorite scenes in like Volume 0, and it barely ever gets the type of coverage that it deserves, like straight up.